It's still. Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Ludica Pekina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we rate articles essential, important, and optional, helping you navigate a lot of news that happen every day in AI. If you want to follow along, or please follow along, the articles are at gaiinsights.com/articles. Today, I have Ankash, Tim, and Paul, and John hopefully will join in a little bit. So we'll start with the first article. Ankash, please.
Sure, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Semi-Analysis, and it talks about how GPT-5 has set the stage for ad monetization and the super app.
Right. This is an interesting, more thoughtful article about what is happening with, or what their strategy is in OpenAI with the release of GPT-5. What did you think about this, Tim?
It's a good article, and I rated it important. I think this is at one level as a consumer, it makes me sad, but this is the wave of the future, which is OpenAI is, I think, Paul, you've been talking about this for a while, like the 5th largest website in the world already. And most of that traffic is unpaid. So the vast majority of OpenAI users are still using the free version. They're making a lot of money, but the vast majority of their users are using the free version. And so they're looking at that and saying, hey, we should make money off these people. And the way you do that is with advertising, especially if you have a very large and popular website. I think the analysis is fine as far as it goes, but the problem here, as with Google, is what starts off as a trusted relationship quickly becomes a sponsored relationship, and they don't address how you're going to avoid that. So Sam Altman can have all the, idealistic values that they espouse of not wanting to be, the Cory Doctorow form of what Google has become, which is not really great for a lot of users. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of money on the table for them to do just exactly that. So to become a trusted intermediary, as they sort of are right now, even more trusted because it's impossible not to anthropomorphize these robots and then take advantage of that to sell sponsored relationships that will make them a lot of money, but will destroy their reputation. So I think that is the part of the analysis that's missing. And we'll see. I think there's an opportunity there, although honestly, I'd have to say as a business person, it's never really panned out. Consumer products protection and underwriter labs, they've made some money, but they aren't Google, and they aren't going to be OpenAI, I suspect. But I think it's an important article for people to read because it's absolutely right that there's no way OpenAI is going to sit there with the 5th largest website in the world and not do something about it.
Yeah, so the argument here is that the switching mechanism that they embedded into 5, even though it created problems for the initial introduction, the argument here that it actually is a necessary piece of getting the value out of the non-paying customers and actually completing that on cost, because you can switch to smaller models when the real-time allotment is reached, and actually contain cost. And also, if you have agents completing the purchases, you can have the path. And the argument here that that's the path that OpenAI is going after with this release. So what did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I think that what's going on is the beginning of a market. And so what I think a lot of people who look at Google don't realize, Google's actually a quasi-market when you think about it. And when they started making money is when they inserted in the the auction process for AdWords, right? That's they their revenue went up, I think 5x when they started auctioning the stuff instead of simply people buying for a single price. And I think we're going to see the same thing here. That at the end of the day, the fifth largest website, OpenAI, is a market in attention. And so on the revenue acquisition side, that's either going to happen in transaction fees or sponsored content. Sponsored content's kind of subscription content. Subscription content is dead, pretty much. So it's going to be advertising driven, I believe. And then because I don't think their current levels, I don't think that the market will support the cost of OpenAI without advertising subsidy. And so I think we have that, and the notion of the router being essential in that is absolutely, because I'm matching supply and demand then, right, or supply and the willingness to pay. So I think there's that on the business model side. On the functional model side, as Paul and others have talked about a lot, we're seeing the evolution of the enterprise intelligence application architecture, right? Like what these giant semantic engines look like at scale. And they're not unitary, right? They are. It looks much more like an operating system. I mean, some of these things, remind me of, printer drivers and security software. I mean, there's just these are specific functions. So I think the router's a big deal on both sides.
Yeah. So your rating?
Oh, important.
Important, not essential.
I was on the fence, but
Aha. Okay. All right. Paul, what did you think?
I'm actually 100% essential. Now, if you scroll down, Ankash, to that slide that shows the low value, like this is sky blue, versus show me a DUI lawyer.
Yeah, there's an example there that says, well, if you ask about why sky is blue,
keep going down. I think it's keep going down.
Or
This one right
find
here.
me a lawyer in the neighborhood, the best lawyer in the neighborhood. That's what.
Yeah. So find me the best DUI lawyer, which is one of the highest paid cost per ads in Google. I mean, for sure, this is going this way. They're going to have an ad agency. It's a proven model for this, and it has profound implications for product choice, vendor choice, and AI leaders need to start getting ahead of this. I mean, I think this is going to be real within the next 12 to 24 months. And so I think a very well articulated article. I think this concept's important. And I love the headline of the article where the router is a release. And that gets to your point, is that we are moving to an operating system. It's got a whole bunch of moving parts, a whole bunch of decisions here, and a whole bunch of complexity here. And this is the new Gen AI. So absolutely essential in my mind.
Yeah, I might even say the router is enabling a market.
Exactly. They also talk about that they hired a person, a lady who has been at places and she monetized assets.
Wasn't she eBay, I think?
She was in eBay. She was also
eBay and Facebook.
And Instacart. So she has done, she turned assets into revenue, and so she's in the perfect place to do that. I think they've prepared for what they're trying to do, and the router is the necessary.
Yeah, and Luda, I think they likely will pull a Zuckerberg play, pay $100 million for the 4 or 5 key people that did the ad bidding system for Google and build their own and start rolling this out.
Yeah, Ankash, I'm going essential.
Essential it is, Ruda, for me as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you indulge me just one quick aside? Google, what Google did is they put in the rational bidding process, which is when you bid for a Google AdWord, the highest bidder plays the second highest bidder's price, which from a market structure standpoint means that there's no penalty to disclosing your reservation price as the highest price you'll pay for something, because you'll pay, if you win, you pay something less than your highest price. And that's been shown analytically. That's when Google revenue went up 5x overnight when they changed that pricing structure. It's really interesting from a decision analytics standpoint.
Yeah, no, leaders need to be aware of that, because the publicity was around the mishaps and problems with this release, but underlying forces here will be influencing markets big time. So absolutely essential it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from the Allen Institute and talks about Malmo Act, an action reasoning model that reasons in 3D space.
Okay. Yeah, this is coming from the nonprofit institute founded by Paul Allen. They are intent on advancing robotics, and this is yet another innovation. Quite cool. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, this is very nice. Everyday miracles. I was going to give this an optional, their notion of how to, of open sourcing, these capabilities for robots, I think is going to be essential. God love Paul Allen, from the grave. I think he's helping out, American technology here. And it's just fantastic that, I'm such a believer that we need much, much more funding for open source, public good capability in this domain. So, I think it's optional for our AI leader, but God love him. Whatever. I think he's doing something super important here, and I wish more wealthy people, alive and dead, would do it.
Yeah. Okay. Optional from John, but super important development for robotics. What did you think, Paul? You're on mute.
Yeah, I agree. Optional, an everyday miracle. I do like the notion that you're adding or highlighting the reasoning capability in these robots. So the demo was kind of interesting, where they gave an intent. They use the AI reasoning model to then execute the physical movement here. But everyday miracle, and AI too continues to do really important work for the public good. So let's highlight them.
And moreover, the model, they say it's open, but they release everything, and they give the recipe to reproduce and advance the model. So it's open plus category. So
Yeah,
quite
I agree,
important.
100%.
Yeah.
They're one of the few that really does state-of-the-art work that also reveals its data sources and its methods.
Yeah.
And I think for people in robotics, this is essential. It's another one of those bifurcated, where
Yeah.
if you're not in robotics, it's interesting, but an optional read. But if you're in robotics, this is really important.
Okay. So optional for general reader, and essential for robotics. Ankash, okay with that?
Yes, Luda.
Okay, let's proceed then.
Okay, the next one comes from Anthropic and talks about building safeguards for Claude.
Yeah, Anthropic since the very beginning was focused on that. So this is a discussion about how they're doing it internally. Ankash, what did you think about this?
Optional article for me, Luda. They provide details into how they make changes in the behavior of Claude, how it's an iterative process. But this is similar to the article that we discussed a few days back when OpenAI released their open source models, right? Where they pushed the models out when they were very sure of that it won't cause any harm. So similar kind of theme here, I would say. So optional from my perspective.
Okay, optional from Ankash. Tim?
Yeah, optional. I also, this one pushes a button for me, which is that the fact that commercial companies are doing this is terrible in and of itself. But the fact that commercial companies and everybody seems to think that they're smarter than the rest of the community and this is the way to protect us is a totally bad idea and a total red herring. There is only one protection to humanity, and that's education. The only way to make these things work. It's like saying, well, we have guns, but we're not going to teach people how to use guns or how to protect themselves for guns. We're just going to put all sorts of controls on the guns. I'm not against controls on guns. That's a whole nother topic, but it doesn't help. The only thing that really helps is that people understand what guns can do and people protect themselves from them. And I just can't believe how silly we all are that we think that guardrails and various kinds of I think that's good. I don't think it shouldn't be done, but the only thing that can protect humans at the end of the day is some discrimination about what's going on. And I don't think we're doing anything there. We're doing absolutely nothing. And so this is just a top down, the absolute opposite of what people who are building these systems say they want, the absolute opposite of libertarianism, all that stuff. It's just crazy to me. So it's great. I'm glad they're doing it. I'd rather they do it than not do it. But it's not a real protection. It's theater.
Point, I think, well taken, Tim. I agree, but kudos to Anthropic. They've done quite a bit on the education as well. But the system needs to be also in there, right? That you can use after you are educated. What did you think about this, Paul?
I agree. The commentary optional. I do think it's interesting when you compare what these closed models can do in terms of papers like this, although I know we're being critical of this, versus what open source can do here. So I think if we think of that open source and closed source as the debate about raw intelligence and supportability, maybe better or at least more quicker in at least closed models. This is interesting debate on that. But definitely for this article optional.
Okay, we're going optional. John, okay? Anything to add? Okay.
Nope, fine. Optional.
Okay. Let's go forward then to the next one. Ankash, please.
Sure, Luda. So the next one is a case study by AWS, which talks about how indigenous AI-powered social intelligence for life sciences turns social media conversations into insights.
Right. This type of listening has been around for a while. The new news here is how specifically various AI tools can be utilized to do it better and more effectively. However, and they talk through a whole plethora of tools that they put to use here from AWS package to do that. However, they say that the time to insight was better, operational cost savings were significant, and the business outcomes were good, but they stopped short of telling us what the real results were. Nonetheless, I think there were several things that they put together here that this in the listening process that are cross industry. Like, for example, they talk about the healthcare professionals, how to identify the opinion leaders and the like in the noise, and how to work with them and get a sense of what is happening, and then feed it back to their clients. So I was on the border between optional and important, but would love to hear what others thought. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was on the border. You pushed me to important. Look, this is for pharma. This is a super important area. And this is a lovely case study. Lays out what the issues are, the architecture, how they got it done. I think that it's the next level of really distilling customer feedback. I'm here in Cincinnati, staying with a friend, Pete Blackshaw, is probably the world's expert on digitized customer feedback, and this is good stuff. So I was going to give it important.
Okay, important from John. Ankash, what your thoughts were?
Important, Luda, for all the reasons that John mentioned.
Okay, Tim, important, optional. What did you think?
Yeah, I was important on this. It's a bit of a long read, but it shows the complexity of the architecture is being developed, and it's a good one to have in your back pocket, as I like to say. So I think it's important. I feel a bit like it's fighting the last war. It'll be interesting to see, because of course they're analyzing social media, and we've been talking now about how social media analysis is not going to be the future. It's going to be AI model analysis, or whatever AEO, whatever we call it.
Yeah.
But it's still a good case study, good bones, and it would be great if they had more results, but it's hard to give quantitative results on influence patterns like this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, we're going important. Paul, any objections? No. Okay, let's proceed then. Ankash?
Yes. So the next one comes from Bessemer Venture Partners, and it's their State of AI 2025 report.
Oh, a longish report coming from one of the VC leaders in this space. What did you think about this, Tim?
I thought it was okay. I could be talked into important because it does help give a framework for where things are. I'm not sure I agree with their framework. It's awfully early to they're capturing these models of companies that are a year or two old. It's logical and coherent. So I would say probably important just to give people a sense of where certain markets are. I wouldn't place too much bets on any of this stuff. It's early days, and of course they talk their book. All these VCs talk their book a lot, but it's a reasonable framework to consider.
Okay. What did you think about this, John? You're on mute.
That's what I'm trying to get to here. Yeah, I was going to give it important. I agree with everything Tim said. Look, it's super early days. I think it's kind of, I think some of the, supernova versus, star and all that stuff. I think it's fun to just think about what are the accelerants and what are the different growth patterns. But, I think if you're to look at, anyway, it's a reminder of just how dynamic and compressed this market is. And, it's got some pretty nice, examples of stories. So I would give it an important.
Yeah. So
the other thing that is worth mentioning is the difference between this and the dot-com bubble. Okay. So if you look, most people probably listening maybe are too young to even have been there. But for those of us who were there, the difference was dot-com companies became very large very fast, but it was based totally on distribution. So their kind of supernova model was totally based on eyeballs and capture of a large number of consumer relationships. The difference here is it's ARR, it's real revenue. These companies are generating enormous amounts of money. Now, they may not be profitable, and that may lead to all sorts of issues over time, but they're generating real money. And so there's a huge difference to me. People say, are we in a bubble? No, I don't think this is a bubble in that sense, because this is real money, and it's very different from what was going on in .com when everything was about acquisition of eyeballs and revenue was a secondary consideration.
Yeah,
and by the way, for Google that turned out to be fine, but for a lot of companies it didn't.
Just to Kaj, if you can get to the table, supernovas versus shooting stars. I think it's on page, I don't know, not far from the top. It talks about, they analyzed the number of companies, and essentially their hypothesis here that supernovas are very grow from grow exponentially very, very quickly, versus the shooting stars. They gain momentum and sort of develop their staying power, but the growth is also quite stunning, right? So their hypothesis here that supernovas would prevail, and they give advice to the startup, also to the founders, to figure out whether they can actually get traction in the market that way.
Yeah, I do want to point people to a really great article by Jeff Raport from 2023 that talks about the extrapolation stage of startups. He has a whole course at Harvard Business School that we help him with called Scaling New Ventures. And he talks about, in the extrapolation phase, you have ones that have positive feedback loops on cash and growth, and ones that have negative ones. And so, like, a good example would be iRobot. iRobot was never able to, it grew like Curate, like Topsy, but their R&D overhang was always greater than the margin they could attract in the marketplace. So they eventually went bankrupt or got bought, I forget which. And then, and the same thing was true of these .com things. A lot of them just spent a lot of money to get eyeballs, but they didn't have they didn't have a cash flow that scaled with that investment. These companies do. Cursor is making money,
Lots.
and very different. So I think
Right, very
Jeffrey,
different.
Jeffrey actually has a better analysis of this. And I put the link; it's available from Harvard Business Review in the thing.
Yeah, just another mention. There are 5 predictions whether they're, and this is in the what will happen in terms of trending in AI. So and that's important from that perspective. So let's mark it as important and proceed.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're right on this, by the way. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think the browser. I think mobile is actually going to be the dominant interface.
Luda, if I can, one other comment.
Voice mobile would be the dominant interface.
Okay, go, Paul.
I agree.
So I did a .com. I was CEO, and I can't tell you the pressure we had to get eyeballs and not revenue. I do think, back to Tim's point, it is incredibly notable that 10 companies that have 0 to 40 million in the year one, and we're looking
Just
at OpenAI 12 billion, and I think Anthropic at 3 billion. So this is a stunning top line. Now, to John's point, some of these gross margins, I think they're still negative 25%. So that's a whole nother debate, but there is absolutely, and we've never seen a tech market with such top line growth with brand new newcos ever. And now a lot of them are selling to the other.
Not at this rate of speed.
Right.
Not
at this rate of speed.
Right. Okay. So predict. I think it's important for the AI leaders to take a look at this, whether they believe it or not. But it's a good compendium. So important it is. Let's proceed. Ankash.
Okay, the last one comes from OpenAI, and it's a case study about how Basis scales accounting by turning OpenAI model progress into trusted agents.
Okay. So it's
I think it's me.
Yeah, John, could you please tell us what?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was going to give this important. I mean, this is I think a great example of it's a vendor talking their book and all the provisos and as they say divide by the appropriate constant. But the this notion of how do you go have services as software is coming along. I mean, I think accounting's a beautiful example because it's kind of quasi-structured. There's some semantic interpretation. There's a lot of rules. It's a perfect place to use a combination of generative AI and traditional AI to automate. I've been on a bunch of boards, including one now. I'm on an audit committee. Actually, when I get done here, I'm going to have to go review the new audit fees from our auditor. I really don't want to pay them. They're overcharging us. It's going to be a couple $1,000,000, and I think it should be like $500,000. So operationally, this is going to be a big issue of audit firms. So I gave it an important. I'm certainly going to ship it around to some of my friends in the audit business to remind them how quickly this is changing.
Okay, important from John because he's in the thick of things in accounting and he thinks this is important.
Well, everybody's got accounting issues.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying it is important. But do we think?
No. But I thought about that because.
No, John. I'm just But you're in, and it's also because you're in the thick of things, and that highlights the area. What did you think about this, Paul?
Sure, I can support important. I think it's a good. That John and I have talked a lot about kind of AI arbitrage and different cognitive tasks, and this is a really good example of that. So important.
Important. Okay, Tim.
Yeah, I'm okay with important. I was on the border. This is, not nearly as good, I think, a use case as the one from AWS. But for OpenAI, this is definitely a step up. So I'm glad they got at least a little bit more detail. And again, no information on actual results either. So that's a little weakness. So lower back pocket.
So Tim, you're saying that it's not a bunch of people inappropriately dressed, in ugly sweaters or T-shirts having a meaningless conversation about the product, which is their normal case study.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but the piece in this article that I think is important is how they're working on the validation of the agent output and what are the benchmarking, what is the reviewability level of the models. So they're focusing on that, and that is very important for accounting and other areas transferable to other domains. So
it's okay, but they don't give any insight into what for me as an AI leader would help.
Yeah.
Right? How would I do that when I'm not them? Even if I was them, they don't even tell how they do it really in any level of detail. So it's okay, but it's not that helpful.
Okay.
I'd
So
be
we
able-
have optional folks, we have important folks.
I'd-
Ankash, you're the judge. What do you think?
I'm important on this one, Luda, for slightly different reason. I agree with John's point of view, but I think this is one of the case studies we have discussed very few where we have seen reasoning models working well, right? So one, they are using O3, O3 Pro, and now GPT-5, right? And then it's a multi-agent system. There is parallel processing. So a lot of advancements from that perspective in this case study. I agree with Tim. It's light on details. But yeah, this can be a reference case study on how multi-agents can work successfully.
Okay, important it is. We are at our time, but any critical announcements, Paul?
No, well, one thing, yesterday I was invited to Massachusetts AI Hub, had a working session all day on, this is part of the, one of the initiatives coming out of the $100 million funding that the state did for AI, and the amount of excitement in non-technical areas for AI is really mainstream now. So it was really interesting to be at the Microsoft Nerd Center with maybe about 150 people there. Just, we're so in our corner, been doing this 350 shows or 400 shows, but to see people from city and lake governments and unions and everyone really, so the world is really waking up to the profound impacts of the AI moment we're in.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul, for that. Okay, for today, we have one essential, 3 importance, and 2 optionals. Thank you very much for listening, Brenda, Kevin, and commenting. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And thank you, Tim, for joining. Appreciate it as well. See you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.